In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Good morning. And on this first Sunday in Lent, welcome to Temptation Sunday. Ah, yes. None of us are ever tempted by anything, right? We just had Valentine's Day. Is anybody tempted by chocolate? Guilty? Well, life is filled with all sorts of temptations, isn't it? Much of the time, the temptations we face are pretty modest or fairly harmless. We're tempted to sneak that extra piece of pie or cake because it just tastes so good, even though we know it's not good for our waistline. We're tempted to speed a little bit on city streets, thinking that maybe 5 or 10 miles over the speed limit isn't all that bad, right? And after all, we usually get away with it. Everybody's doing it. Nobody gets caught. Well, usually. No harm, no foul. Maybe we're tempted not to report to the government all of the income we've received during the year. I do not want to show of hands if we have tax cheats in the congregation this morning. Because after all, if you're doing that, your thought is, what is mine, right? Why fork over my hard-earned cash to Uncle Sam? It's mine. Cheating on our taxes, well, frankly, I imagine that that's an age-old American habit going back to the beginning of the Republic. Now, it's not a good one necessarily, but it's a temptation that all too many give into. And even though cheating the IRS in the legal scheme of things is getting right out there in terms of severity, there are many ways in which each of us are tempted to cheat or at least cut corners in our life just a bit. The problem with giving into these temptations is that the social fabric that connects us unravels a bit each time we cut a corner, each time we cheat just a little bit. The temptation that we see on television daily is one that says to you that you can have, you fill in the blank. You can reap huge financial rewards by doing next to nothing. You can lose weight without exercising. That one's my favorite. You can stop the aging process if you just use the right magic cream. All of these temptations fall into the category of, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. At some level, I think we're all tempted to believe that we can have it all with little or no effort. If only that were true. Our reading from the book of Genesis this morning takes us back to the second of the two creation stories, the story that tells the story of Adam and Eve and that nasty little bit of business with a serpent in the garden. Remember that Adam and Eve are living in the garden, a place of perfection, a place of perfect relationship with God. God as creator. They are given the opportunity to till and nurture the garden with God and to name the animals therein. They've got it all until they're confronted by a serpent. Now, let's not get too down on the serpent. The serpent is not Satan incarnate. The text simply doesn't support that. We're told that the serpent was more crafty than any other wild animal that God had made. So the serpent is part of God's creation, an integral part of the world inhabited by Adam and Eve, but, mind you, pretty wily. And the serpent seems to know what will tempt Adam and Eve to reorder their relationship with God. Having been told that they can eat freely of every tree in the garden except the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, or they would die, the serpent approaches them by saying, "You won't die if you eat the fruit. God's just trying to keep the good stuff for himself. Don't you want to have your eyes opened like God so that you can see everything that God does?" Needless to say, that was a paraphrase, by the way. Yeah. The serpent tempts Adam and Eve by suggesting that their relationship with God, which seems to be pretty good as it is, would be even better if they could share in all that is God's and be like God. What harm could there be in that? The harm, of course, is that we're not meant to be God. And that's not why God created us. We're not meant to be God's equal. We're meant to always recognize the primacy of God and live faithfully into our intended relationship with God, in a place that is garden-like, but not necessarily the garden. God began all of this knowing that God would need our help with this created world. What God doesn't need is another God, but a people who know God and know their place, their important place in relationship to God and the created order. Now, let's fast forward to today's gospel lesson. Having had the Spirit alight on him at his baptism, today we hear the Spirit leading Jesus into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil, the real devil. Having had his identity as the Son, the Beloved, conferred upon him at his baptism, that identity will be tested in the wilderness. Given that the Spirit leads Jesus there, I believe one has to assume that there is a divine intention in all that is about to happen in the wilderness. It's worth asking up front this question: whose temptations are these? Are they only Jesus' temptations, or are they ours too? Are these sorts of temptations all that human beings face, or are they unique to Jesus because of his extraordinary messianic role? As writers go, the Gospeler, Matthew, isn't overly subtle. The temptations of Jesus in the wilderness follow the pattern of the people of Israel on their journey through the wilderness of Sinai. First, there's the issue of hunger. I refer you to Exodus chapter 16. Then there's the business of putting God to the test at divine favor. See Exodus 17. And finally, there's the issue of false gods and the object of their faith, and that covers all the territory in Exodus between chapters 19 and 32. When the temptations of the people of Israel and the temptations of Jesus are viewed in parallel, one thing becomes perfectly clear. The people then, people today, have always been faced with the temptations of doubt, misdirection, and faithless choices. Where we fail, Jesus triumphs. The issue is about the essential character of the one who triumphs. Where we succumb, Jesus resisted and remained faithful to his calling. Satan's first temptation of Jesus challenges Jesus' identity and his physical hunger. If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread. For the Son of God, that would be easy enough. But Jesus' self-understanding is such that he knows that his hunger is not about him alone. It's the hunger of the world. He could easily have fed himself and ignored the world around him. But that would be self-limiting and counter to God's intention. Jesus isn't called to a little ministry, but one of enormous size and sweep. And feeding human hunger, one's own or the world's, isn't a bad thing. It's just the only thing. As my favorite New Testament commentator Tom Long says, the faithful don't live by one word, one need, one issue, one passion, one conviction, and they don't live exclusively for themselves. They live, as Jesus said, by every word that comes from the mouth of God. We are meant to live that way as well. The church itself experiences the temptation of being small whenever we lose sight of the enormity of the gospel and measure our effectiveness by how quickly or fully we meet the personal demands of those who insist on being first and foremost. We lose sight of where we stand in relationship to God. Me first? I don't think so. You hear things like, I'm bored, give me some excitement in worship, or I'm a parent, take my child and give them some religion. Well, that's the church's job, isn't it? Or I don't like the way the parish is spending money, or I don't like something the rector has done or said. I'll withhold my pledge and encourage others to do that as well. I actually served a parish that did that. My temptation is to imagine, the temptation is to imagine that the church, this church, or any church like it, is so small that it's yours. It's not yours. It's God's, and is only limited by your imagination, your passion, and your love. The second temptation follows on the first. If you live by every word that comes from the mouth of God, why not take a deep breath, bend your knees, and hurl yourself off the temple roof. After all, the angels will catch you, and everyone will be amazed. And if God is who we believe God is, won't God pass this test with flying, so to speak, colors? Not so quickly. The answer is that testing God doesn't come from the trust, but a lack of it. Trying out God's promises to see if they'll really work is not a sign of faith, but a sign of profound doubt. It implies, as Tom Long says, that we are in God's position. We not only know God's promises, but we also know how, when, and where God is supposed to fulfill these divine promises. If God doesn't perform in just the right prescribed way, either God must be a liar or there is no God. Putting God to the test is the temptation to reverse our relationship with God. It puts us in charge, and God is treated as our servant. It gets us back to those issues in the garden, doesn't it? The third temptation is for Jesus to have it all. Wouldn't that be wonderful? All the kingdoms of the world just by falling down in front of the devil. Well, that would be the easy way, and of course, Jesus will have none of it. Jesus will have all the kingdoms of the world, but he'll get there by being nailed on a cross. The journey will be messy, agonizing, and sometimes very, very cruel. It will involve teaching slow-learning disciples, just like us, the secrets of the kingdom, touching the broken and the disabled, those with diseases of the skin, such as lepers, facing opposition from religious leaders, being blown around in the treacherous winds of public religion and opinion, having a trusted disciple betray him, and finally being forsaken by all the rest of them. It will ultimately mean being handed over to authorities, being tried as a common criminal, being spat upon and mocked, and being nailed in the most hideous and cruel way to a cross and left to die. The devil was offering Jesus a pass on all of this, but Jesus understood that the easier, softer way is not the way of God. To get to the victory of the resurrection is to walk the way of the cross. Jesus knew that because his very character was wired that way. There is no easy way. The way of the cross is our way of life. I encourage you, especially during this Lenten season, you have the stations of the cross surrounding you now. Take advantage of that. That is the way of the cross. It's fraught with pain and suffering, and it's led by Jesus because Jesus chose not to give in to the temptation to take the easy way out. We can go this way because Jesus has been there before us. Whenever we attempt to soften the cost of discipleship and pretend that the work of Christ does not involve suffering, we not only give in to this temptation, we take on, as Peter later did, the role of the tempter. Remember Jesus saying to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan." Peter had just suggested that the way of the cross was not for Jesus, and Jesus needed to rebuke Peter soundly. The cross is our way. Let's not be tempted to move away from it. We see today in this the Spirit's role, and we do each time we baptize. It gives us the power to live as a child of God, to give us strength to withstand temptation, and it lifts us when we fall, and it puts us back on the path to Jesus Christ.